Good evening, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to At Lafayette Live for Monday, January 12th, 2026. It's our first At Lafayette Live of the new year. I hope that your holidays were fantastic. I hope that you got to spend it with family or quietly or on the road or at home or however it is that you had hoped to spend the holidays. I hope that they went according to plan and perhaps you got a little bit of rest and relaxation in, however you define that. I know that we did. Christmas is a holiday that we spend here at home with the boys, and it's nice to just uh, turn off and recharge for a while, just enjoy sleeping in, staying up late, watching movies together, just doing all that sort of thing. So we really enjoyed that. Kind of toned it down a little bit for a few weeks, put the speed down to low, turn the volume down, if you will, and it was very refreshing. And so, however you chose to spend your holidays, I hope that they were just as rewarding as mine and our families were. But thanks so much for joining us here in 2026 as we kick off another calendar year of At Lafayette Live. I should probably at some point think about this in seasons and go back and count how many episodes we've had and what season that we're in. I'm not quite sure if I would break the seasons up by the calendar year or if I should break them up by the school year. Doesn't really matter at the end, in the end. But if you've never joined us before, I'm Jeff Gooch with the Russell Company. I'm a local Lafayette realtor, and I love living in our area. Love helping people buy and sell homes here in the area, and I love helping keeping you informed about what's going on here in the area. We follow up on a lot of development news, a lot of real estate news, housing news, what's coming and going in the area, but also fun things to do, great restaurants to go check out. But that's why we are all here. And if you're interested in buying or selling a home here in Lafayette, I'd love to be your local Lafayette real estate resource of choice. All my contact information is right there. You hear me refer to it throughout the evening. But you can go to the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube and fill out a form to start the process of working together. And when you fill that out, you hear from me, not some VA based somewhere else, not some assistant. You hear from this guy right here. So uh, like I said, this is our first show back in 2026, and part of that was I was still kind of on vacation last week. I was working a little bit, but definitely a lighter load last week. Helped some folks close on a home in West Lafayette, and did a little bit of other work, but otherwise it was fairly quiet. And one of the other reasons that we didn't have a show last week is the world just didn't have a lot going on. So I just thought it best to wait a week. But really, that waiting a week hasn't brought us a whole lot of more news. So I've got a couple of things that have developed since we last spoke together at the end of the year last year in the middle of December. I have to go back and look and see what our last show was. But a few things. And then I'm going to spend some time looking forward to what 2026 is going to bring, as if I have a crystal ball, as if anybody has a crystal ball. But we're going to look at some national trends and relation to what we're seeing here in the local market in the Greater Lafayette area. So to begin with, Lafayette opened the extension to Park East Boulevard a little while ago. And if you're not familiar with where this is, I have a map here. I have too many windows open. Hang on, I'm going to find my map. I must have closed it. That's no worries. I will opening it again. Let's just open the map. Here we go. So Park East Boulevard is this north-south road that runs right next to the east side Walmart here on 26. Here is 26. Over here in the corner, this is exit 172, the main artery thoroughfare into Lafayette. And Park East Boulevard has of course existed for a very long time. But you can hop down here and go get your car washed and hop over to Walmart. But what just opened was the extension from McCarty, which is right here, all the way down to Haggerty. I was commenting with my wife the other day what this really means, because we would come to it this way, is it's opened up the back door to St. Elizabeth. Let me put this into map mode. That's a little easier to see maybe than the satellite mode. I don't know. St. Elizabeth is right here. This is the hospital. So now you can hop off of 26 down to Park East, and whereas in the past you had to go east or west on to McCarty, you can now continue on south and hit the roundabout here to head over to the hospital, over to Franciscan. And likewise, if you're coming from the south side, if you're coming up 38, if you're coming over from Brady or wherever, you can hop onto Haggerty and hop up Park East Boulevard to get up to the central part of the east side of Lafayette. So that opened a few weeks ago. Handy new shortcut to have here in town, and has a couple of new roundabouts to it. I know that roundabouts are a little bit of a controversial subject here in town, but I rather like a good roundabout. I personally think they improve traffic flow, and sometimes it's fun to go around them more than once. I'm joking. Not really. What do you think about that? Drop a comment down below, or hop in the chat and let me know what you think about this new extension. And go to the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube, and let's work together on home here in the Greater Lafayette area. The next news really is kind of big news, and that is that we have gotten the first peek at site plans for the SK Hynix chip fab in West Lafayette. This has been a controversial topic and continues to be. Local homeowners across the street are up in arms about the location of this I-3 zoning for this chip plant. But things are moving along, and SK Hynix had to go and get their drainage plan approved, and part of that plan included part of that filing included the site plan. So we now have some idea of what the SK Hynix site is going to look like. So here it is. And this is the filing that they have to make with the state for drainage purposes. This gets into the permitting process. So let's see which of these works best. Is it this one? No, I want this one tonight for this image. There we go. So we can see Salisbury 50 West right here and Calbearer right here. So this is what I have come to call Site B. This is the site where SK Hynix is. Originally, they were supposed to be over on Site A, to the further to the west here, but they are on Site B. And we can see from this that the plan is broken up into a 3x4 grid. The building itself is centered here with a 3-story fab building and a 4-story office area immediately adjacent to it. Of course, parking surrounding it. But one of the interesting points is that the plan is actually set back from Salisbury a little bit. They're maintaining this as a setback and as a little bit of a drainage area as well. The site's going to have multiple inlets. Down here we have off of Calbearer, we have visitor and employee entrances to the parking lot on the south side. There are 2 entrances there. There's an entrance from the west side to that parking lot, and then service entrances along the west side of the site on Yeager Road for what is labeled some various things. So down here in point 4 is an entrance for truck and commercial. Access point 3 is also labeled for truck and commercial. Access point 2, heading up towards the north end of the site, is listed as full access driveway to the gas yard, and access point 1 is to the Duke substation. There's going to be a Duke high voltage substation here up on the northeast side of the site, gas yard on the northwest side of the site, and then various storage here under D and G. So this is not giving us all of the detail of the site. We have early renderings of what the building is going to look like. This is for drainage purposes. This is for early utility purposes, but this is the first real look that we have gotten on what the SK Hynix site is going to look like here in West Lafayette. And we anticipate that ground is probably going to be broken early here sometime in 2026, and they plan on being fully operational by 2028. So things are getting underway here. I know that at every city council meeting, we still have local residents who are still protesting this decision, but the company is moving forward. Here's the rendering of what the site plan is going to look like. Again, this is an artist's rendering, so we can see the fab facility and the office facility and the parking surrounding it. Again, artist rendering, just to kind of put everything into perspective for what's coming up on the SK Hynix site. Now, if you are coming to West Lafayette because of this development or because of the related development, and no joke, if you want to leave West Lafayette because of this development, it can help you with either of those. Go to the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube and fill out the form, and let's start working on getting you here in West Lafayette or getting you out of West Lafayette. And perhaps we can put something together with somebody that wants to come and somebody that wants to go. Maybe that sounds a little opportunistic, but we live in reality. Some people are gonna want to be here, and some people are going to want to leave. So more to come on that, but that is definitely news on SK Hynix here in West Lafayette. All right. This evening, I want to take a look at the 2026 housing market outlook here in the Greater Lafayette area, here in Lafayette and West Lafayette, Tippecanoe County, and the Greater Lafayette area. And full disclosure, to kind of guide this discussion, I'm using a housing market outlook that was published by the Compass real estate conglomerate. They are one of the largest out there now. In some markets, they have more than 50% of the market. But as I was going through to find the data to kind of guide this conversation, amongst all the various sources that I found, this one does a good job of putting all of the data together in a logical fashion that can help shape the discussion, and they cite their sources is the important thing. This isn't just sales and marketing material. This is cited sources going back to the data. So let's go to the top. And this will be a little start and stop. I'm sure I'm going to have some thoughts on things that come up later that will influence things that we talked about earlier. So to start with, we got to talk about the nationwide, even the worldwide backdrop of what the market looks like. I like to say a lot that all real estate is local, and that is a very true fact. But we do not just live in a bubble. We've had the lock-in effect over the last several years where existing homeowners have cheap mortgages, historically cheap mortgages, and some as a result of that, but also a result of the lock-in building tons of equity. Whereas buyers after 2022 definitely have higher payments because of higher interest rates and have not had time to build a lot of equity. Rental rates have been climbing. They've been climbing nationwide. In New York at about a 4% rate. In some other markets, closer to 1%. But here in the Greater Lafayette area, they have definitely been, those prices have definitely been growing. And the combination of not enough homes on the market here in the Greater Lafayette area has driven those increases in rental prices. And you get into this catch-22 of you're always constantly trying to, catch up. Your rent's going up. Well, if you would have bought a house, your mortgage isn't going to go up. Could your taxes go up? Could other things go up? Could your insurance go up? Absolutely. So let's move on here. We're starting to see a little bit of the signaling of improvement of affordability. I did not say that things were affordable. I did not say that things are affordable. One, I'm not placing a judgment on what is affordable and what is not affordable. There are some accepted formula that show what is typically, in economic terms, been affordable and not affordable. But nationwide, we're starting to see improving affordability. Now, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that house prices are coming down. And for everybody that complains about, oh, house prices need to come down, I counter with, do you want the value of your house, of your investment to come down? I don't. I don't think a lot of people do. Price increases have begun to slow, which means that wage increase is starting. It's not there, but it is starting to close that gap. Could that turn around next year, next month? Absolutely. Absolutely. But let's take a look at some charts here. All right. Here is the data that backs it up. We're looking at home prices as a ratio to income. And we're looking at national data here. And we can see that in 2022, it peaked at about 5.5, what this chart is calling severely unaffordable. Home prices are more than 5 times income on a national average. We can see that has started in 24 and trending in 25 to come on a downward trend. Again, starting to come down. I did not say affordable. If we look at this chart, we can see that it is broken into 3 areas. Severely unaffordable, which is where we have been. Less affordable, which is where the chart goes back to all the way back to 2010. And affordable. Affordable being home prices at 3 to 4 times income. So if your income, using round numbers here, is $100,000, then an affordable house would be $300,000. At less affordable, if you're making $100,000, then housing would be at $400,000, and then $100,000 income, a $500,000 home. These are all the same home, of course, that we're talking about. So this is just an illustration of what affordability is starting to do. Now, will it continue that way? Oh, we sure hope so. But there's, I was going to say a chicken and egg problem here, but that's not quite right. The problem is, and we're going to start talking about mortgage rates to illustrate the problem. With flat prices, buyers might think, you know what? I'm going to wait for prices to go down a little bit more. I'm going to wait for APR to go down a little bit more. But perhaps they don't go down. Perhaps rates start to go up. But then we talk about mortgage rates. We've been living in the 6 to 7% rate on 30-year mortgages for the last year and a half, and it only dipped below, well, last year and a half, but all the way back to October of 23, it spiked up close to 8%. It was about 7.8%, and the last time that it was really below, that the mortgage rate was below 6%, was back for a sustained period of time, was back in September, October of 22. Now, what just happened? If you've been watching the news at all, we've seen mortgage rates dip below the 5% level. I have a live chart here. This is from Mortgage News Daily. Here's the 6% line. I am currently looking at 30-year fixed rate mortgages, and we're at about 6.01%. So we're not quite below 6%, but for all intents and purposes, we're there. Now, if we go to 30-year FHA, and there are advantages and disadvantages to FHA, and not every house and not every buyer is going to be FHA approved, those are actually sitting below 6% at 5.7%. And then just for comparison, 30-year VA, if you're a veteran, I cannot overly emphasize the importance of exercising your access to your VA mortgage. Currently sitting, as of earlier today, 5.71% on a 30-year VA. So if you watch the news at all, why are these mortgage rates coming down? There have been some macroeconomic pressures that have slowly starting to ease that. We can see that we kind of were living up at the 6.5% for the better part of 2025, and it's kind of slowly started drifting down over the last half of the year, the last quarter of the year. Then suddenly we kind of get this relatively big bump for the time period. There are what could generously be classified some factors in the news, in current events, that are driving that. It's entirely possible that some of those more controversial issues that are out there might bump it back the other way. Again, I don't have a crystal ball in front of me. I'm just saying when things are as controversial as many things are right now, that it really gets hard to make predictions. Predictions are based on rational data. So, continuing on, we have reached the point that nearly 20% of all mortgages have greater than a 6% rate. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because if your rate is greater than 6% and the rate is 6% or in the neighborhood of 6%, it is not more for you to go out and get a mortgage on a new home. You're not locked in. Why is that? Well, people might want to stay in their home, but sometimes people don't have a choice but to move. And I'm talking about people that get married, have babies, kids that go off to college, leaving empty nesters. You have divorce. You have people getting new jobs, maybe in a new city, maybe in a new state, moving for school, for higher education. If you're in Greater Lafayette area, perhaps you're coming here to pursue a PhD at Purdue and you're going to be here for a number of years. Sometimes people are forced into moving. So nearly 20% of people now have a mortgage that is greater than 20%. The average rate of outstanding mortgages, and this is nationwide, is 4.5%, and the current market rate is 6.1, 6.2%. We are nearing that crossover where the bulk size of outstanding rate is going to be larger than the current rate. Here's the chart that I'm looking at that shows that. We're here at 4.5%, and this is the national average of outstanding mortgages. And then the current market rate, 6.2%. And we can see that this has kind of been living in this opening here, a spread of 2 to 2.25%, 2.5%. We're not at the crossover. We can see that we had crossovers back in 2018, again in 2019, and again in 2022, heading the other way. We're not at a crossover yet, but we're headed there. This is all a lot of deep data. Like I said, this is a deep dive into what the market looks like and what it's going to possibly look like here in the Greater Lafayette area in 2026. Our days on market have been increasing. In Indiana, and this is for all of Indiana, it has been up to 61 days, just about a week and a couple of days shy of 10 weeks. At the peak in West Lafayette, it was 2 to 3 days. You could have your house listed on Friday and have it sold by Saturday or Sunday. That has stretched out. We're seeing more inventory on the market now than we have seen in a while. The total number of inventory is going up. However, that is largely being driven by the fact that houses are on the market for a bit longer than they have been. There are not more houses coming on the market at any one time. The input is staying at about the same rate. It is the output that is taking a little bit longer to move around. I expect to see that continuing for a good part of 2026 here in the Greater Lafayette area. All right. Moving on to our next point. We are, in addition to houses sitting a little bit longer, we are starting to see homes actually come off of the market. Seller put them up for sale and they didn't sell, and they've decided to withdraw them. Maybe they decided to come off the market and go back on the market as a fresh listing, get some new attraction, new attention to that listing a couple of months later, maybe in a better season for the seller, perhaps changing plans. But we are starting to see more homes come off the market, and nationwide, that number is up. And in Indiana and in Greater Lafayette, that number is up. Now, the number of people buying homes is staying about the same. And this is one that I wanted to really highlight. And this comes from the Mortgage Bankers Association. Sorry, I'll get this lined up properly here. There we go. 13-week rolling average. So 3 months. The blue line is 2025. Check that out. Almost flat. 2024, it was almost flat. 2023, it declined. 2022 is where the real declination happened. That's the yellow line here. So we got here at the end of 22. We lived there for most of 23. That's the red line. We continued on down. 24 held about steady. And then we come back in 25, and we're starting to grow, and we're about to hit that crossover point, that of the low point of 2022, and hopefully start growing. So the number of mortgage applications has been holding steady for a number. It declined in 22, and then in 23, continued to decline a little bit more in 23, and then in 24 and 25 held steady, a little bit of growth towards the end of 25, and hopefully we will start to see that growth increase. Why is that important? Well, that's important because now we're talking about more buyers coming on the market. I'm going to wait till mortgage rates come down. I'm going to wait till prices come down. Here's the news. Here's the takeaway. Prices are not going to come down. They will hold steady, hopefully, and not increase quite as fast as they have been. As mortgage rates do what they're doing right now, more buyers are going to enter the market. What does that mean? That means that competition is going to become fierce. It has been fierce for those buyers that were in the market, but as more buyers enter the market because they think they're getting a deal with a better mortgage rate, they're going to find more buyers competing with them, and then guess what they're going to get into? They're going to get into a multiple offer situation, and a house is going to go on the market in walking distance to Purdue University, in the West Lafayette School Corporation, in Lafayette, close to Nanshan Aluminum on the south side. A house is going to go on the market on a Friday, and they're going to have 10 offers by Saturday morning. And you know which one's going to win? The person that offered the most money. And then we're off to the races. What am I saying? Am I saying you shouldn't buy a house? No. I'm saying that the best time to buy a house is now, not later, not some other time, but right now, because we have the market for now. What's the market going to be tomorrow? Could be better, could be worse. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. All right. Let's keep moving on through this data. We're getting through it. All home sales nationwide represent luxury, and this is the top quartile, $1 million and above, now represent almost 20% of the market, 19.1%. That percentage is not quite as high here in the Greater Lafayette area. I hear a lot about, hey, institutional buyers, cash buyers, putting pressure on the market for those who have no other way but to finance through a traditional mortgage. And those are not untrue statements. I do understand and do agree, sympathize with those facts. But cash buyers by price range, and again, we're looking at some nationwide data, but cash buyers by price range. Check out this one. I'm trying to get this aligned so we can see all the bars. Okay, so basically it's about 20% of buyers from $200,000 on up to about $1 million. It gets up to about 26%. And then it grows to 35% at $1 million and then hops up to north of 50% at $2 million plus. How many homes do you think are north of $1 million here in the Greater Lafayette area? Oh, they exist, but it is a very small percentage. And then the number of homes that are 2 million and above is a very small population indeed. And I think the highest house that sold last year in the Greater Lafayette area was somewhere just under 5 million, and that was one house. So like the 10 million bar doesn't even really apply to us. I went through and I checked these stats against the MLS data for last year, and the general trends track. It's actually a handful of percentage points under this, so 3 to 7 percentage points difference in the local data versus the national data. So, at 22% nationwide, it might have been 16 or 17% here in the Greater Lafayette area. So not even 1/5 of the homes in the $200,000 to $350,000 price range are going cash. And I think that's going to continue to hold, and that's going to continue to be the way that it goes. And the bulk of our homes here in the Greater Lafayette area are below $500,000. Yes, there is a good population of $500,000 to call it $800,000, indeed even $800,000 to $1 million. There's a good population of homes. But the bulk of homes here in the Greater Lafayette area really live in the $0 to $500,000 range. So if you are a cash buyer, fantastic. Let's go and write some offers. Let's buy you a house. But if you're not a cash buyer, you shouldn't let that stop you. And as a matter of fact, you also shouldn't let the thought of 20% down stop you. Will 20% down buy you a better interest rate and perhaps buy you a lower payment? Yeah. But there are so many great programs out there from the big hitters that everybody knows about. FHA and VA. The state of Indiana has some great programs that help with down payment assistance in some cases and give grants for that. There are some programs that help lower the cash that you have to bring to the table. But hoarding cash for a down payment is not in and of itself a barrier to entry to owning your own home. And as we go through all of that, if you are interested in finding out more details about any of this, go to the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube and fill out the form, and you'll hear from me directly, not somebody else. You're going to hear from me. That's the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube. So what does 2026 really kind of look like? There's no simple answer. I don't have a crystal ball. Of course I don't. Affordability still difficult. House prices are up. Income has not kept up with that. Hopefully, as price growth slows, income growth will start to close some of that distance. I get it. Everybody wish they were paying more. We wish that corporate America, we wish that everybody was able to pay more right now. But hopefully that will start to get some of the problem taken care of. As people start to move even more than they have had, as we talked about earlier, people have always had to move because they're getting married, because life changes, they're having kids, jobs change. There are also the people who were, now we're going to start to see the people that were locked in over mortgage rates start to go, you know what, it is time for me to go, or I just don't care anymore. I want to go live somewhere else. The labor market is definitely going to affect all of that. Does the labor market soften? It might, but in that vein of real estate is hugely local. Our local economy here in the Greater Lafayette area has been strong, and for the moment continues to be strong. I mean, for all the controversy of SK Hynix coming to West Lafayette, it is a signal of a strong, healthy economy. We have all of the new companies that have come to town over the last few years: GE Aviation and Saab, Nanshan Aluminum. We have the companies that have been here for longer periods of time, decades upon decades in some cases. We have Caterpillar and Subaru. The manufacturing economy is strong in the Greater Lafayette area. And we have a gem of a research university, Purdue University, that is helping drive, some of this. Now, are all of these companies coming just because of Purdue University? No, but it certainly helps. So, all right. Let's see, I'm going to scroll through this and see if I think there's one other chart I wanted to show you guys. Case-Shiller has a fantastic database of home price changes, and when I talk to people about home prices, and they talk about, how long is it going to be before home prices go down and correct, they have gone down 3 times over the last 40 years. In 1990, about 2.2%. In 2008, this was the big one, about 27%. You'll all remember that one. And 1 month in 2023, they dipped into the negative as the pandemic boom came to a close. Here's the chart, and here's Case-Shiller's prediction of what home prices are going to do in 2026. So we can see those 3 drops. Here we are in the 90s. Here we are in 08, in 22, 23. And here's our forecast. So we can see home values went up to 20% in 2020. They had been hovering around 3 to 5, getting up to about 6-ish% here in the late teens, and then really spiked. But we kind of came back down to earth, and we've kind of been living in that same range. Case Shiller's prediction gives three points of reference. Could be 0.5% is their forecast, but statistically it could be a little higher in the around 3 to 4% range. It could drop negative briefly again down into the -2, -3% range. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't say for sure, but the statisticians are able to look at the past data and then assign some probability to the data that is driving these, and then make some best guesses on what's going to be happening in the future. So we're talking about 4.6% at the high, 0.5% as the forecast, and -3.6% at the low end. I'm a fairly big believer in medians and averages for most data. So essentially flat, that 0.5%, maybe even a point or two above that. So a little bit of growth. So what we're seeing right now is home prices starting to hold steady. We're starting to see mortgage rates drop slowly, oh so slowly. We're starting to see more people having moved, and so that percentage of mortgages that are certainly greater than 2%, but are in that 5 and 6 and 7% range, that just bulk percentage of people nationwide that have those mortgage rates is as large as it has been. So people are going to continue to move. The market is going to do what it needs to do. Greater Lafayette is going to continue to perform a very, very healthy level. Now, we're starting to see some price reductions, but I would argue that the price reductions that we're seeing are not, for the most part, driven by the market. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of the price reductions are being driven by sellers who wanted to try to, from the most positive standpoint, make the market. They wanted to define the price for their home. And the reality is the market defines the price. And so most of the price reductions that we're seeing here in the Greater Lafayette area are because of that. Now, are there homes where they're not selling because pricing has come down? Sure. But inevitably, there is probably some other pressure on it. There are local market factors. SK Hynix is starting to be, I think, a pressure point on some homes around the area for sale. There are, lots of factors that go into that. So there you go. All right. I have gone on and on and on long enough. Let's wrap this up. New home sales here in the Greater Lafayette area have really kind of been anemic, and they have been anemic nationwide for the last 2-3 years. If you've watched the channel if you've watched the show at all, you have seen us jump on the announcements of a number of new build neighborhoods. There is one neighborhood of almost 1,100 homes by one developer coming to West Lafayette that is breaking ground very, very soon. There are a number of 400 home site neighborhoods in Lafayette and West Lafayette that are breaking ground. This year, there will be permits for several hundred to north of 1,000 homes breaking ground here in Tippecanoe County. We're finally going to see more new homes come for sale, become available. That's going to increase the number of total homes that are available in the market. So we're going to start to see some stability in 2026 is the forecast. We're expecting home prices nationwide to be essentially flat. We'll probably see a little higher appreciation here in the Greater Lafayette area. It's not a crash and it's not a boom. It's just the market dealing with accumulated imbalances over a number of years of factors that have driven us to this point. Most of the analyses when they were written towards the end of the year were expecting to build in mortgage rates of 5.9 to 6.9%. We've already kind of touched that 5.9% rate already. Will that continue on down and just shred all of these analyses that were done? We're gonna find out. For sellers, you really have to price it right. You don't want to get into a situation where you go on the market with an overpriced house and then it goes stale and then people start wondering what's wrong with it. Listen to your realtor. Get your price right on the first time. Go to thelafayettereal.com/YouTube. Fill out the form and I'll get back to you and we'll work on it, the correct valuation for your home that you need to sell now before you can move into your next home, whether that's your next home here in the Greater Lafayette area or whether that's your home somewhere else in the country, somewhere a little warmer, maybe in Texas or Florida or California. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us here on the first At Lafayette Live of 2026. I appreciate you joining us every week. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so that you don't miss a minute of content that we put out here on the channel. And don't forget to join us again next week for At Lafayette Live on Monday at 7 o'clock. Enjoy your week, everybody.